Imagine living in a country where your faith makes you a target, where going to church, sending your kids to school, or simply farming your land could be a death sentence. This is the reality for millions of Christians in Nigeria, a nation often called the deadliest place on earth for believers. The numbers are staggering. Since 2009, credible non-governmental organizations report that tens of thousands of Christians have been killed, with thousands of churches burned and communities displaced. While violence in Nigeria is widespread and affects all citizens, a significant portion of this carnage is explicitly directed at Christian communities. The perpetrators are not a single group, but a complex mix, including Boko Haram, the Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP, and increasingly, armed Fulani militant groups. But to understand this crisis, we have to look past the headlines and delve into the deep, turbulent history that laid the foundation for today's conflict. This isn't just about religious difference, it's about colonialism, politics, resources, and a fault line that runs right through the heart of the country. The story of modern Nigeria is one of two great faiths meeting and merging. Islam arrived in the north around the 11th century, becoming deeply entrenched with the establishment of the powerful Sokoto Caliphate in the 19th century. Christianity, meanwhile, arrived later, primarily via European explorers and missionaries, spreading heavily through the South and Middle Belt regions. Then came the British colonial administration. Their policy of indirect rule effectively cemented a north-south divide. They generally avoided interfering with the Islamic structure of the north, restricting Christian missionary activity and Western education there. This created a profound imbalance. The south became more westernized, while the north remained more insulated, leading to disparities in education and economic development. When Nigeria gained independence in 1960, these historical divisions were baked into the new nation's political structure. The country became a giant mosaic of different ethnic and religious groups, with an almost even split between the largely Muslim north and the largely Christian south, all vying for political and economic control. The real escalation of religious tensions began in the late 1970s and 80s, amplified by global Islamic movements. A key turning point was the decision by 12 northern states to adopt the Sharia penal code starting in 1999. This move deepened the sense of marginalization among Christians in the north, leading to deadly sectarian clashes over the years. The early 21st century introduced a new, terrifying dimension to the conflict: jihadist insurgency. In 2009, the militant group Boko Haram, meaning Western education is forbidden, launched an armed insurgency in the northeast. Their goal: to establish a pure Islamic state governed by a strict interpretation of Sharia law. Boko Haram, and its more deadly offshoot, ISWAP, have specifically targeted Christian churches, schools, and communities, epitomized by the infamous Chibok schoolgirl kidnapping in 2014. These groups are unequivocally motivated by religious ideology, aiming to eliminate or forcibly convert the Christian presence in their areas of operation. But in Nigeria's fertile Middle Belt, the violence takes a more complex, multi-layered form. Here, long-standing, often violent clashes between primarily Muslim Fulani herders and predominantly Christian ethnic farmers have exploded. While at its core a conflict over dwindling land and water resources due to climate change and population growth, these attacks frequently take on a brutal religious and ethnic dimension, with countless villages and churches razed. Experts emphasize that not all violence in Nigeria is religiously motivated. Widespread banditry, kidnapping for ransom, and general insecurity affect everyone. However, for many victims, the selective and brutal nature of the attacks, the targeting of clergy, the burning of churches, points to an unmistakable campaign of religious persecution and ethnic cleansing. The global community, including the United Nations and various Western governments, has been called upon to acknowledge the severity of this crisis. For a nation roughly split between Christianity and Islam, the failure of the Nigerian government to effectively protect its citizens, prosecute perpetrators, and address the historical, economic, and political roots of the violence is the central tragedy. The path to peace is daunting, requiring more than just military intervention. It demands justice and accountability, ending the impunity that allows perpetrators to act without fear of consequence. Socioeconomic balance, addressing the deep poverty and lack of education that fuel recruitment into extremist groups, interfaith dialogue, fostering true reconciliation and trust between communities. The killing of Christians in Nigeria is a humanitarian catastrophe built on centuries of complicated history. It is a stark reminder that religious freedom is a cornerstone of peace, and that in the absence of justice, old wounds turn into new violence. Please subscribe and hit the like button to support the channel. Thank you and see you on our next video.